but that's also when mistakes get made.
Right.
And I think a human being being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measured twice, cut once.
Yeah.
This is kind of crazy that could be possible. That's horrific. And that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs. And then, like, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Well, if you think about it from a government perspective, and this is where I think it gets quite sinister, is once you've done that, the incentive structure is never going to be to admit that and deal with it. The incentive structure is to say nothing, to cover it up, to pretend it didn't happen. Right?
That is horrible.
So someone ends up in a black hole.
Joe Rogan's acting like he's hearing for the first time that the Trump administration doesn't give a damn about how many laws it breaks and constitutional protections it violates. He's the same guy that claimed that the criticisms of Trump's fascist soul were just some psyops against him.
What you're seeing with Trump, regardless of his flaws, is a massive, concentrated psyop. They've distorted who he is to the point where most people think that way. They've had narratives.
What is a psyop? I keep hearing that.
Psychological operation.
Whoa.
Where they've decided to distort people's perceptions of things.
So now that the newest anti-Trump psyop, Joe Rogan, is voicing his concern for innocent people being swept up in the bigoted mass deportations of anyone that they baselessly deem criminal, he might want to talk to his fellow blind Trump supporters at Fox News who actually still don't give a damn.
We now know of 2 separate cases of people who have tattoos that met that criteria, but it was just for one of them a crown that said mom above it, and another one, another crown tattoo. So that's obviously something they're looking for, but it turns out that that guy had a crown tattoo because he got matching tattoos with his ex-girlfriend, and they had done that. So those people have been sent to this El Salvadorian
the
prison
lesson,
camp.
do not get matching tattoos.
Correct. Time magazine was there when the gay barber from Venezuela who had a crown tattoo that said mom was being processed coming into the El Salvadorian. Oh, am I boring you again? I'm sorry.
No, but you've been talking about this gay barber from El Salvador with some stupid tattoo for weeks. Weeks, Jessica.
Come on.
It's just a gay barber.
He's not into you.
He's an innocent guy who got swept up in a deportation, and hopefully we get it figured out and straightened out. But a lot of people in this country, Jessica, get arrested for things that they didn't do, get falsely accused, falsely convicted.
I'm also against racial profiling.
That doesn't mean you just stop arresting people. That doesn't mean you stop arresting criminals because one guy was arrested who was innocent. It just means you just try to do it better the next time. And I have nothing against the gay barbers. Gay barbers usually give the best haircuts. So we should bring them back just for that.
It's just a simple daily display of their incredible opposition to the Constitution and human rights. These are the same people that would have condoned enslaving others, sending disabled and Jewish folks off to concentration camps, and Japanese prisoners into internment camps. This administration's goal of giving the most vile Americans a reason to shed the shame of being a huge piece of shit and promoting it for other pieces of shit to come out of the closet has been a very big success for them.
Many gang members don't have a criminal history, so we have to count on social media. We have to count on surveillance techniques. We have to count on sworn statements from other gang members. We have to count on, wiretaps and Title IIIs. Everything involved with criminal investigations come into play. So just because someone hasn't been arrested and charged with a crime yet, doesn't mean they're a member of a gang.
But how do you? I mean, what we've heard from lawyers representing some of these people is that they deny that they're members of this gang. Or either, Tren de Aragua or MS-13. Do they get a chance to prove that before you take them out of the country and put them into a notorious prison in a country that they're not even from? I mean, do they have any due process at all?
Confidence. Look, due process. Where was Lake and Ronnie's due process? Where were all these young women that were killed and raped by members of TDA? Where was their due process?
Well, the people that did that should be prosecuted.
Alive on a subway. Where's her due process?
Well, sure.
The bottom line is that plane was full of people designated as terrorists.
When blatantly racist authoritarians openly dismiss constitutional rights like that, things like this happen.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement is saying very bluntly that this was due to an administrative error with this Salvadoran national in particular. Now, a little bit of background as to who this is. His name is Gilman Abrego Garcia. He's a Salvadoran national. He crossed into the U.S. around 2011. His first brush with law enforcement appears to be in 2019 when he was detained along with a group of men who were loitering around a Maryland Home Depot. And the local police department deemed that he was a member of MS-13, saying or arguing that it was due to his attire and a confidential informant. Ultimately that year, an immigration judge granted him a protected status known as withholding from removal. Now, the ICE official says that this man, Abrego Garcia, was not on the initial manifest for those 3 flights that went to El Salvador in mid-March. What occurred was as people were pulled off of the flights for, they say, various reasons, he was moved up on the list. Then it says this, and I'm going to quote from the court declaration here, quote, "Through administrative error, Abrego Garcia was removed from the United States to El Salvador. This was an oversight, and the removal was carried out in good faith based on the existence of a final order of removal and Abrego Garcia's purported membership in MS-13. So the administration is standing by these alleged ties to MS-13, but saying that he should not have been sent, or rather that it was an error that he was sent to the mega prison in El Salvador. His wife, who is a U.S. citizen, had been looking at handout videos from El Salvador, and that is how she identified him. Now, all of this is part of an ongoing lawsuit, so we'll see how and what the judge rules in this case, but critically, John, the administration saying they can't retrieve him from El Salvador. As U.S. officials have told me, those who have been sent there are now in Salvadoran custody, and it is up to the Salvadoran president what happens next.
After they randomly assumed that this guy was a member of MS-13 without any actual evidence or any due process, they admit that they mistakenly put him on one of those hurried flights to El Salvador so that Trump could boast about deporting criminals while defying court orders. It's why Marble-Mouth Holman there scoffed about due process, and why White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt proved Joe Rogan's guest's point that once this kind of stuff starts, the only response left is to cover it up and pretend it didn't happen, only to then move on to the next group of people that they don't like, regardless of their citizenship. So watch this evil authoritarian ignore her own admissions of guilt and claim their lawbreaking is right, simply because they just say so.
The Vice President said he was a convicted member of MS-13. What evidence is there to back that up?
There's a lot of evidence, and the Department of Homeland Security and ICE have that evidence, and I saw it this morning.
You said you'd seen evidence that this man was a convicted gang member. In what court was he convicted, and for what?
This individual was an MS-13 ringleader. This individual was also engaged in human trafficking. And I'm glad you brought up this point again, because I would like to point out that if you just saw the headline from the insane failing Atlantic magazine this morning, you would think this individual was Father of the Year, living in Maryland, living a peaceful life, when that couldn't be further from the truth. They didn't even mention in the title of that article, or even in the first paragraph, that this individual is an illegal criminal who broke our nation's immigration laws. He is a leader in the brutal MS-13 gang, and he is involved in human trafficking, and now MS-13 is a designated foreign terrorist organization. Foreign terrorists have no legal protections in the United States of America, and this administration is going to continue to deport foreign terrorists and illegal criminals from our nation's interior.
But a judge ordered that he should remain in this country, so are you saying that it is okay to ignore a judge's ruling if you don't like it?
Who does that judge work for?
He's an immigration
It was
judge.
an immigration judge who works for the Department of Justice at the direction of the Attorney General of the United States, whose name is Pam Bondi, who has committed to eradicating MS-13 from our nation's interior. And I wish that the media would spend just a second of the same time you have spent trying to litigate each and every individual of this gang who has been deported from our country as the innocent Americans whose lives have been lost at the hands of these brutal criminals. We maintain our position, and very strongly so.